The Great Wall of China, and I would assume that all of us know about the Great Wall, but I guess you can never assume nowadays, just in case, the Great Wall is in China. And the Great Wall of China is the largest wall ever built, largest wall ever built. Do you know that it took 1,800 years total to build the walls, from the beginning to the completion of this wall? 1,800. That's a lot of years. From 220 BC until sometime during the Ming Dynasty in the 1600s. When it was completed, now look at this, when it was completed, a total of 6,000 miles. No. 6,000 miles. I'm going to give you kind of a picture of what that looks like. From here to Portola, it's about 150 miles. 50 miles from here to Portola, which is about an hour away where they live. 50 miles. From here to LA, it's about over 500 miles. From here to LA, how many of you have driven to LA? So that just kind of gave you a picture of how massive this wall is. 6,000 miles. Do you also know that it took about, ready for this? 800,000 people to build the walls. 800,000. That's a lot of people. Do you know that a lot of them have spent all their lives building this wall? A wall. What's the significance about the wall? A wall is significant, and especially when we look at the book of Nehemiah, there's this wall that had been destroyed. The people of Israel were suffering greatly. They were exiled, and the Babylonians have destroyed the temple. They have destroyed the wall and everything else you could imagine. They destroyed it. And so Nehemiah is one of a leader at the time under King Nebuchadnezzar. And so here's what happened in the book of Nehemiah. Let's read it real quick. In the month of Kislev, in the 20th year, when I was at citadel of Susa, Hanani, one of my brothers, came from Judah with some other men, and I questioned them about the Jewish remnant that had survived the exile, and also about Jerusalem. They said to me, "Oh man, those who survived the exile and are back in the province are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire." Look how Nehemiah responded. When I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire. The people are in great trouble, distress, and disgrace. Friends, look at me for a moment. We are surrounded with broken lives, not only in our community, but in our city. Broken, that had been so brutally treated like a garbage, a lot of them are. We have this incredible amount of people that are walking around and they're walking around broken. And they are in distress. They are so lost. And I wonder, though, when we see them, how do we respond? How do we respond? I wonder, though, if we had become numb and senseless, that we see them and the attitude is to ignore them. I'm just going to speak truthfully with all of you, because during my fast this week, God showed me a lot of things. And I began to humble myself before my God. I want you to know that your pastor struggles. I'm not a super being. I'm not super spiritual. I'm just like you. I struggle. But during my struggle, in the midst of my struggle, I realize how much I need God. And that I just come before His holy throne of grace to ask God to change this heart, because I want to tell you, I had become numb and senseless. And I had ignored so many of them. Now, you might say, but Pastor, you're helping a lot of people. I do. But is it possible that I'm helping those that are easier to help? Do you know that it is harder to help those that are hard to help? I'll just be real with you. That every time I go to Walmart or Costco and I see these guys, the homeless folks, approaching me, somehow I get to this attitude of, I got to be quick, I got to do quick, and I got to go in there and ignore. Have we become numb and senseless? That we see all broken lives, and somehow we had become numb and senseless, and that we just ignore these broken walls and these broken lives that is just surrounding us. Friends, you don't need to go far. They're everywhere, walking around with broken lives. They are distressed. They are suffering. So Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 4, when I heard these things, this is how Nehemiah responded. I sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. I wonder, though, when we saw them the last time, were we heartbroken? Did we weep? Did we mourn? Just seeing how broken their lives are. Nehemiah chapter 2, so I went to Jerusalem and was there 3 days. And I arose in the night, I and a few men with me, and I told no one what my God had put into my heart to do for Jerusalem. God called them. God placed this conviction and this mission to build the walls in Jerusalem. There was no animal with me but the one on which I rode. I went out by night by the valley gate to the dragon. By the way, I'm in Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 13 now. I went out by night by the valley gate to the dragon spring and to the dung gate. I expected the walls of Jerusalem that were broken down and the gates that had been destroyed by fire. He inspected it. When was the last time we drove around our community and inspected how many broken lives are in our community? You just drive around. Starting from Morrill and go to Spokane and go on. We are surrounded with broken lives. We have an apartment next door. It's a drug house. Lives that have been so broken in the dark, that are so lost. When was the last time we inspected that? We've been here for a while, friends, and somehow we started so well in having this attitude of expecting walls, and we did something about it, but somehow we've lost our way. So I'm calling you together with me. Let's start inspecting and seeing the reality of the broken lives of so many people, not only in this community, but in our city, in your neighborhood. Then I went on the fountain gate into the king's pool, but there was no room for the animal that was under me to pass. Verse 15, then I went up in the night by the valley and inspected the wall, and I turned back and entered by the valley gate, and so returned. And the officials did not know where I had gone or what I was doing, and I had not yet told the Jews, the priests, and the nobles, the officials, and the rest who were to do the work. Now listen to this. He did not mention anything yet to the officials, to the priests and nobles, the Jews, and the rest who were to do the work. Nehemiah was expecting everyone to engage. Now look at me. I got 2 hands. I wonder though, what can these 2 hands do in building the lives of people? What can these 2 hands do? Now bring up your 2 hands. And those that are watching, bring up your 2 hands. Everybody. Just hold it up. Just look at your hands. Now imagine what everyone could do together. We're called to do the work together. Not just me, but all of you, including the leaders, including the church, the whole entire church. We're called to rebuild the lives that had been destroyed and that had been brutally beaten by the world's wickedness. And we are called together to rebuild the lives of these people by leading them to Jesus, the only hope of humanity. Together. God expects you and me to come together. You're not meant to just come on Sunday and do nothing else. It bugs me tremendously when the study says that only 20% are engaged in doing the work of God when 80% just sits around. Let it not be us. Let it not be us. I'm begging you. Because right now, I'll be honest with you, this is true. We've had 3 weeks to give you an opportunity to sign up to engage in what God is doing through our church, and the same people, the 20%, signed up. That's sickening. I'm sorry. That's so sickening. When all of us could engage, it's the same people year after year. When God has called all of us as ministers. Some are called to be pastors, some are called to be teachers, some are called to be evangelists, some are called to help, some are called to pray for people, some are called in handling, in getting involved in our community, some are called to help with the kids ministry, the after school club. Some of us are called with musically, talent and stuff. All of us are ministers of Jesus Christ. And that's why when they say 20% are engaged, that bothers me a lot. What are the rest doing? When we are surrounded with broken lives, there's a great work that God has called us to do. I'm not here to trying to make you feel, bad about where you're at, because I'm telling you, God convicted me. And yes, I felt bad, but guess what? I am not just going to stop there, but I'm going to the next step, which means, God, I repent of my sins. Please, I'm asking you to forgive me and change this heart. Change my heart. I don't want to be numb. I don't want to be senseless. I want to see and value people as you value them, because you've created them in your image and likeness. They were fearfully and wonderfully made, and you came, Jesus, for them. And how dare that I had become numb and senseless. When you called me, when you called the church to be the light and the salt. Then I said to them, verse 17, you see the trouble we are in? How Jerusalem lies in ruins with its gates burned? God is saying to us today, look around you, my children, where you are surrounded with broken lives. Their lives they lie in ruins. Their family are so broken. Kids are suffering. Come, Nehemiah said, let us build the wall of Jerusalem. I really believe that God is inviting us today. Come. Let us together, with all of our hands together, let's build the lives of this people by leading them to Jesus, the hope of humanity. Come, let us build the wall of Jerusalem that we may no longer suffer derision. And I told them of the hand of my God that had been upon me for good, and also of the words that the king had spoken to me. He was talking about how Nebuchadnezzar gave him, the king in Babylon, how the king gave him a lot of favor. And I really believe that we have God's favor. Friends, don't forget this, that we had been called in this community. We had been called. And I believe that we are favored by God, because there were so many other churches that could come here in this community, but He chose us because we are highly favored by God. Not because we're so special, but because the God saw us. And He's saying, the people of Vertical Church are my people, that we will rebuild the lives of these people that I love. And I told them of the hand of my God that had been upon me for good, and also of the words that the king had spoken to me. Look at how they responded. And they said, let us rise up and build. So they strengthened their hands for the good work. Let us rise up and build. As we are inspecting, as we are looking around and seeing broken lives, let something just out of our heart, let us just imagine of us rising up, not just continue to sit, on Sunday after Sunday, but to rise up and let us stand. Look, let us rise up and build. Let us go to work. In fact, the Bible tells us right there, for the good work. When you and I lead people to Jesus, it is the best work that you'll ever do, that I'll ever do in my life. Because I want to tell you today that treasures, look at what Matthew, go ahead and just click on that, Stephanie. The book of Matthew chapter 8 tells us this. Do not store up, Jesus said, do not store up treasures where? On earth. Why? Because moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures where? In heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. Now look at me. Treasures is not about consuming all stuff. You know, the beautiful cars, the beautiful house, and all this other stuff that we're trying to consume because we think that treasure is all about that. I want to tell you that when I die, when you die, nothing, absolutely nothing that you can take with you where you go, and it's all staying here. But do you know what you and I will take? It's all about people. That is real treasure. Because if I know that I'm not taking anything with me, when I get to heaven, I'm going to see so-and-so that I led to Christ. I'm going to see so-and-so that I led to Jesus. I'm going to see so-and-so that gave their lives to Jesus. And that is our treasure.